Hey, I'm Kwes and this is my review of Sense8, the Netflix original series. Sense8 is a story of these 8 people who are very, very different from everyone else. They are connected to each other both mentally and emotionally and physically. And it's the story of them discovering this about themselves and their connections and understanding how how it all works. Now, when I first started watching this, I was really intrigued because it's created by the Wachowskis. I think them and another guy, but like the Wachowski siblings made this with this other person. And I was really curious because I'm going to be completely honest, since The Matrix, not the Matrix series, since The Matrix, they have really kind of like fallen flat for me. I haven't enjoyed anything that they've done that much, to be honest. I think I didn't even watch Jupiter's Ending, but I've heard amazing things about how bad it is. So I was really curious to see like what this was going to be like. I was like, well, this could go either way. As you watch Sense8, it's really interesting to see these characters, these 8 people whose lives are being affected by this sort of event, or not event, but these 8 people whose lives are being affected by the fact that they are different. They are connected somehow to each other. Now, I'm a huge sci-fi person. I've been, I think ever since I was a kid watching the original Flash Gordons and Star Trek and Star Wars and all that stuff. So I'm really big into sci-fi. And when I saw this, I was skeptical at first due to the Wachowski involvement, but then it's a Netflix show, so I kind of gave it the benefit of the doubt and said, what the hell? And it turns out to be a really interesting show. It's very character driven. And the performances are really grounded. I don't know anyone who in it, maybe aside from Freema Jemai. So fine. She's so fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Freema Jemai is so fine. And she's half Ghanaian, so I see you. And I've seen a couple of the faces here and there, but I'm not really familiar with the actors. And it's a really entertaining sort of like character-driven sci-fi story. And there haven't been enough of those lately. Another thing about this show, it must have been crazy expensive to shoot because it's shot all over the world, literally. It shoots in Korea, Kenya, Chicago, Finland, London. I want to say San Francisco? Yeah, San Francisco. And it also shoots in I want to say Berlin, somewhere in Germany. And it's just this really huge... And the way it's shot, it gives you a good scope of the world that you're in, which is the real world. But like it gives you a good scope of the world you're in, but it also gives you like a very narrow focus of it, which is a very interesting contrast. It shows you that there's this huge world that they're playing in, but it only focuses on certain parts of it at a time. It's a really cool concept of these people who, through their connection to each other, they can now like borrow each other's, and it's not as simple as like being... They have this weird connection, and it's not as simple as sort of like speaking to each other telepathically, which they can do in a really, really cool way. They can speak to each other, and they can inhabit each other's bodies. So it's like they're not necessarily borrowing each other's skills, but let's say there's one person who's really good at fighting. That person can now inhabit I can inhabit the body of another person who's not good at fighting, and help them not get their ass kicked or killed, as happens to be the case a lot of the time. My favorite characters were Sun and Will. One character, Lisa, who was an actor in Mexico, and he's secretly gay. But he doesn't want anyone to know that, obviously, because once it gets out, he's afraid that like his career will be over. The roles that he gets will no longer be his to have, because those kind of roles apparently don't go to gay men in Mexico. So, his story I thought was really interesting. He's not, he plays these macho characters in these films, but he's not much of a fighter, to be honest. But and I found it really cool the way that he's used in the show, because he's an actor. And they really use that very cleverly. Like, they use, his skills can be used. Because you'd think, why would you need an actor's skills? But, it turns out at some point, an actor's skills would be useful for the kind of things that they want to do. And these people, they're called Sense8. It's basically a group of people who are... Spoiler, if you haven't watched the series, I don't know why you're watching this, but you should, it's pretty good. But these people, it turns out, are not human. They are an evolutionary step, I want to say, beyond human. And there's a couple elements that they play on that, which makes sense, but at the same time doesn't. Because it's like, admittedly, if the world found out that there was another species running alongside humanity, they would want to experiment on them. But also, that doesn't make sense because the guy who is chasing after the Sense8, who himself is also another Sense8 from a different cell. There's a whole thing of basically when you're in a cell of Sense8s, you're born into one cell, and everyone in that cell is born on the same day, I guess on different years. And then there's other cells, as you would imagine. But the villain of the show is this guy called Whispers, and he's from another cell of Sense8s. But he's trying to like capture all of the new Sense8s that we're following in the story. But it doesn't make sense for him to want them to be exposed because he's one. So it's like, why is he doing this? His motivations aren't clear. He's very mysterious, and maybe they'll explore that in season 2. Maybe in season 2 we'll understand more about his motivations and what he's after, because he's very mysterious at this point in time. There's this one guy who's played by Saeed from Lost. I've forgotten his name in this, but he sort of is like the mentor to one of the Sense8, and you know, he teaches him how a few of the tricks and like what it means to be Sense8, and he sort of plays he sort of gives us a lot of exposition for the series, and a lot of answers that we wouldn't have had ordinarily. He provides, and I really like that actor. He really sells the role. The show is sort of a really grounded sci-fi. It's not like, you know, lasers and spaceships or anything like that, but it's the way it's done makes a lot of sense, and it's a really interesting take on how these people's lives are impacted by the fact that they are different. The fact that these Sense8s are experiencing these sensations that they can't really share with anyone else, or most people. And it was really interesting how a lot of their lives were being ruined by the fact that they were now Sense8. Like, it wasn't a thing wherein like everything goes swimmingly. One time, because like when they first get their powers, because it kind of is a power, but like when they first become Sense8, they involuntarily their minds travel involuntarily to other Sense8s, or vice versa, and then the impacts of that were very entertaining, but also very interesting in that you wouldn't normally expect it to happen that way, and it does have some comedic value, but also for the drama of the story, it really did work really well. After the performances in this were done really, really well. I really liked the majority of the actors. There was this one dude, I don't know whether it was the way he was directed, because he's in more than one episode. And I'm not sure whether he's directed by the same director in every episode, but he's acting way too over the top. Like, he's up here and everyone else is down here. So it kind of takes you out of the experience, because this guy is acting on another level that doesn't really work. It's a character called Bug, who was part of Nomi's storyline. I wasn't really fond of him, but he serves a purpose in the series. So that was, you know, a small but important, a small role, but you know, he annoyed the hell out of me. I really did like the Will character. He plays a Chicago cop, and he, you know, when he becomes a Sense8, his life starts to get turned upside down. I just caught that. His name is Will. His life got turned upside down. Fresh Prince? No?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Nice one. But I really like the Will character, and I like that he develops a romance with Riley, she lives in London, but then her storyline kind of moves out of London for a while. And I really like the chemistry of the cast, and I like the idea that like you can fall in love with someone intimately without actually being next to them. And I suppose it's different for them because they can experience each other physically without necessarily being in the same hemisphere, I guess. You know, they aren't even in the same continents, well, in the same room, but they can experience each other physically. There's a sort of an orgy scene, and I have to actually make an apology right now. Sister Eunice from BSL, if you're watching, I apologize for telling you the Wachowskis weren't into orgies. Apparently they are. So you were right this time. It's the kind of thing that when you see it, you wonder, could this happen? If it did happen, and obviously no one would really know about it, but if it did, and if it happened to you, how would you react? And a lot of these reactions, the way it's handled by most of these characters, is very understandable and very relatable when something huge happens to your life. And I really like the diversity of the cast as well. It's, I would say, easily one of the most diverse casts I've ever seen on a TV show in the last, I want to say, few years, minus Lost. People of color really well represented in this show. The LGBT community.
like to try that again.
I really would, yeah. People of color are really well represented in this show. The LGBT community is also really well represented in this show, and I guess white people are really represented in this show as well. It's a really interesting cast, and I like a lot of the choices that they make. I like a lot of the actors. Like I don't know a lot of the actors in this show, but I'm gonna look out for them now because they're really talented. The character Will, whoever the guy that plays him, I've seen him around, but I don't know him by name. But he was a really good casting. He's I would say one of the leads of the show. I mean, there's 8 leads, but within the 8, there's always, you know, a lead. And I have to say, there's this one thing. Don't get me wrong. I know I shouldn't complain. There's a black lead in this show. Well, there's a black lead in this show. He's from Africa. He's from East Africa. And while I'm not East African, I have to say there's a flashback scene where he tells his mom asks him, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he says he wants to be a zebra. And his mom says, you're going to be the best zebra there ever was. I call bullshit. I'm from Africa, okay? If my mom asks me what I want to be when I grow up and I say a zebra, she would beat the stripes out of me. There's no two ways about it. If you're from Africa, you can't be telling someone, and it's not like she's one of those modern day middle class moms. No. These people are poor. These people are dirt poor. Dirt poor people don't want to have kids who want to grow up to be zebras. That's not a thing, Wachowskis. Maybe in your new sci-fi Sense8 universe, that's a thing. Not in this one, where we live. So that was my review of the show, Sense8 on Netflix. You should definitely check it out. If you're into sci-fi and you like diversity, you should most definitely check it out. The Wachowskis, I want to say they're back. They directed a few of the episodes, but it was a really, really good showing. I really like what they did with this. I'm curious to see what happens if there's a season 2. And where the hell was this in Jupiter Ascending? Sorry, no, I haven't seen that. Where the hell has this been in your last few movies? Huh? Anyway. So if you've seen Sense8, comment down below. If you've not seen Sense8 and you want to see it, then comment again. Or comment for the first time, I guess. And if you just, don't have the time and you've seen a couple sci-fi, what's been your favorite sci-fi TV show that you've seen and why? So please comment down below, let me know. And hit me up on social media if you want to talk about anything else. My social media links should be on the screen. If not, they will be in the comment section right underneath this. Thanks for watching. Bye.